everybody else was busy, Molly was on TV, Jen was golfing. So I guess they got me. We'll start by asking whether or not you've approved you guys have read the minutes. Is there a motion to approve or any questions?
So moved.
Ken has approved, Molly has seconded. Chair's report, the chair is in Albany. President's report is up.
Okay, excellent. I won't read to you the report I gave, but certainly the most important activity right now is this is the last day of classes and we're heading towards commencement. And something like 850 students, over 850 students are expected to receive their degrees, their certificates of completion, which enable them to receive their degrees. So that's one of the biggest commencements ever, and we are hoping for good weather. Before I go too far, I want to introduce Sandra Cruz, who is the incoming College Council member. She is our new SGA president, and she's been a leader on campus. Are you a junior this year, or you're a junior? It feels like so you started when I started, and she's just been an extraordinary leader on this campus, and we're going to have a wonderful year, I think, working with her, and I think you'll enjoy working with her as a member of the council. In terms of the campus, certainly the Excelsior Scholarship has taken a lot of energy, shall I say. We are still learning a lot of the details about the Excelsior Scholarship as it's unfolding. But what we do know is that applications will be available in June. Probably awards won't be ready until late in the summer, and they are writing the regulations as we speak. So one of the main challenges that the public will be facing over the summer is really determining which students are eligible and ensuring that students get every single penny that they are entitled to. My hope remains that this is an opportunity for people who have not previously looked at the public sector to realize what an amazing high quality education we offer here, and at an affordable price. So my hope is that in the long range, we will use the Excelsior as a way really to highlight what incredible education we give in the public sector, and especially here at Potsdam. In terms of SUNY news, we had the chair with us for a good day, and I have to say, he and his assistant, who's a very young policy guy, I think they were very pleased by the work going on our campus. They came at the height of the local Festival of the Arts. The chair had never been to our campus before, and his assistant, who who was in New York City with the chair and was trained at Cornell, had never been to Potsdam before, and I think they were very excited by what they saw. They were excited by the quality of the programs, the arts, the extraordinary quality of our students, and I think they left very, very pleased. So for the summer, we're heading into a continuation of our strategic planning and assessments on our direction. We're in the midst of looking for an interim chief financial officer, and I think we'll be successful over the next few weeks. And I'll stop there. I mean, it's been an extraordinarily busy few weeks, and we are eagerly waiting for beautiful commencement weather to have those 850 plus students across the stage.
Any questions of the president? Okay, I'm told by Carol's menu here that we're going to go into the faculty presentations. Chris Torres and Tony McGill have a presentation exercise science. I had the pleasure of having breakfast with you. We went to the Ohio State University.
And just completed
Oh, thank you. Steve, say that again.
he just completed his PhD.
Oh, they're two. Oh, wonderful.
The Ohio State.
Well done.
Do you want to just push play on this?
Sure. Actually, let me just start it first. Hi, everybody. I know we met informally, some of us in Memphis. My name is Tanya Hewitt. I'm the program coordinator for exercise science.
Yes, so Dr. Christopher Torres, professor here with exercise science.
We have two of our students with us today as well. Nathaniel Skidmore, who is a junior in exercise science. He is one of our men's hockey players, our goalie, actually. Sloan Campbell is a graduating senior of exercise science. She's one of our women's varsity volleyball players as well. And they're going to be available for questions if you'd like to talk to them. I told them to be nice. They're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fine. So we thought that we would basically talk a little bit about our major informally. If you have questions for us, please don't hesitate to ask. We're not gonna make anybody do any push-ups or anything like that. And we have put together this short presentation. It's just gonna run behind us. There's no sound or anything to this, but it just gives you some snapshot pictures of our major. And did you have it linked, Carol?
Is it got sound?
No, it doesn't have sound, but I wanted to set it. Did you set it to loop?
No.
Okay. I'm just gonna have it loop behind us. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
And I might talk through the first one so you guys get a good idea of what you're looking at. But just to give you a little bit of background about our program, we're in our second year of our major. And I would actually say that it's our first fully operational year. The first year we were approved for the exercise science major in July of 2015. Okay, so our incoming class was already coming to Potsdam at that point. And I'll talk about our enrollments, but this is our first fully operational year. We have some images of what we've been up to this year. So I thought you might like to see those quickly. And again, it will loop so you can watch, but we have been putting together a lab. We've been purposely strategically dreaming our program, and we envision our graduates to be this. They're shaping our future. This is our exercise science lab, one of our classes. Students are, I don't know, Chris, whatever they were doing.
That was our strength and conditioning class.
This was one of our first EKG tests. This is our men's track and field coach. We took a trip to the Olympic Training Center with our strength and conditioning class recently. And here's some images from that trip. It was an amazing trip. A lot of interesting things. Strength and conditioning class. This is one of our seniors trying not to hurt himself. Some of our equipment. Again, we're touring that amazing facility. If you've not been there, I would highly recommend. We have a world-class facility in our backyard. They love to show people. This is our first student-led VO2 test. So he's testing cardiovascular capacity. Chris was there. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so basically what they're doing here is going through the different stages. If you notice that he was walking and then starting to run, basically to figure out how well or how efficient your body actually uses oxygen to be able to move or work. So that's what that was.
And again, there's just some more images. This is Brad Shepard. He's one of our graduating seniors as well. And then a final group. So this will just continue to run. Please feel free to watch it, but just to think a little bit about what you're looking at. So a little bit about our program history. We were just going to talk about where we have been, where we are now, and where we plan to go. We'll chime in, and the students too. We'll ask you guys to chime in a little bit. You don't know what you're going to talk about. But as I said, we were approved in July. Our first cohort of students, we had 20 students enrolled in exercise science in the summer of 2015. Most of those students were currently on campus. We had a few that were coming in and indicated exercise science once they got here. Generally speaking, they were transfers from other programs. Our students are, we've grown in terms of enrollment. Right now we have 62 enrolled students in exercise science. We're hoping to project up to 70 as of the fall. I think that we'll overcome that, but I don't want to be, that was a very conservative projection. The last time I did the calculations, about 40% of our students were populated by athletes. Obviously exercise science and that type of major is attractive to people from an athletic background. So we have, as you can see, a lot of athletes in our major. We have two tracks, which you can see by our pamphlet. We have a pre-professional track and a sport performance track. The pre-professional track was put together to position students to go on to fields of study such as physical therapy, occupational therapy. We have a couple in that track. You met Dana Reed, who is going to medical school from that track. We have one who wants to go be a registered dietitian. So that the required coursework in there are prerequisites for most of these occupations in terms of graduate study. The other track is a more applied track where these students would graduate and be strength and conditioning coaches or fitness management or things like that, where they would go directly from school into the workforce doing something from that applied perspective. There's a lot of similarity between these two tracks. You can see that the students can kind of shift in between two while they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Honestly, the bulk of our students are the free PT, free OT, which are exemplified again in this room. But again, there's a lot of health professions. Another thing that we're getting a lot of questions about is athletic training. Athletic training has recently, the governing body of the athletic training has recently changed their requirement from a bachelor's level to a master's level in order to practice. And in doing so, it's opened up a variety of different fields for bachelor's level study. And one of those things happens to be exercise science. We're seeing an influx at open house and some questions about athletic training, which kind of straddles these two tracks. Let's see here. From a timeline perspective, I think that's where we've been. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about where we are. And we are obviously a hands-on, as you can see, major. You know, our students, when they graduate, they have to have touched somebody down the road. You know, we're very applied in nature. We are applied in the classroom. We have an internship you can see built into our major. We have seniors. We have 11 seniors out on their internships right now. In the community, we have some a lot of them at CPH, actually. In physical therapy, occupational therapy. We have one working with a nutritionist. We have one in Akwesasne working with pregnant women. We had a couple strength and conditioning interns. Dana Reed actually was an intern working with an aged population. So we have a variety of interns doing a bunch of different things. But Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about the experiences that you're doing in the lab and anything applied that you want to discuss?
So the vision that we have for the lab is we wanted to turn that into a non-traditional learning environment where we're really applying everything that we're doing as we're going through it. So giving the students the opportunity to, as we teach something, have them go and actually practice with the equipment that they would actually use in the field. And not only do that, so traditionally, for example, if you're doing a skin fold test, you might practice that once in a lab, and then that's pretty much it until you graduate, and then go and practice it, you know, and you're expected to be an expert in this. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to allow the students to get those reps in, to be able to do it over and over and over again, to build this proficiency. So when they graduate, they're able to actually move straight into a career if they so choose, whether it be personal training or strength and conditioning, whatever that might be or whatever that might look like, they are ready to hit the ground running.
And so again, we have these experiences in the lab with the equipment that we've so graciously been provided with over the last year. And we also have these internship experiences as well. And one of the things that has recently happened is Chris has been elected the New York State chair of the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And in doing so, it's going to bring a lot of opportunity for our students to practice in one of the top level organizations in our field from the strength and conditioning perspective, which will, you know, bring some clinics to campus, which we plan on doing, and allow our students to participate in this manner in terms of an administrative manner. So we're really excited about that. We're also really excited, like Nate and Sloan, to talk a little bit about what you're going to do this summer and what you're doing right now. Can you talk about your internship experience currently and then what you plan on doing this summer? Go for it, Sloan.
Yeah. So my internship, I've been with the hospital working with the occupational therapist, and I'm on an observational view only, so no touching patients or anything. But the things I've learned this semester, just with the opportunity to go and just sit and watch, is unbelievable. Not saying like any other major you don't get the opportunity to like go out and do an internship, but completing these 120 hours has really shown me all the different aspects of what this field is, and even physical therapy side too, which I was borderline between the two, but having the ability to see exactly what is done in their education and how this track is leading me one step closer to becoming what I wanna be, has been really special.
So this summer, I get the opportunity to work with Mike Boyd, strength and conditioning, who lives in Boston, Mass. He was the strength coach for Boston University for about 15 years. He also worked with Boston Bruins for about 10. So with this program, they were interested in me because it's come from Potsdam. It's not a traditional strength and conditioning school, but they like the story, they like where my background was, so I'm very excited to be able to move to Boston this summer and work for 12 weeks.
It was a rigorous application process for Nate. He had to make a video for his application. This is actually excellent. Made a video, and they were selected 2 out of 500 for this internship. So we're all excited to brag about them.
Yeah.
So, those are just 2 examples of some of these experiences. As Sloan mentioned, the 3-credit internship gets them 120 hours of experience in occupational therapy or in physical therapy. New York State mandates, no matter what school you go to undergrad, you can't touch people. They have to observe. It's just a New York State law. It's not anything about our program, it's everybody, Clarkson, everybody. Obviously, there's some higher level, medical things going on there. So they have to observe. But in terms of the prerequisites for specifically physical therapy school, Clarkson wants 50 hours. And so 120 certainly surpasses that. Clarkson occupational therapy wants 40 hours. So they surpass that. And the reason I'm really familiar with that is that I recently met with Clarkson physical therapy and occupational therapy to develop articulation agreements between the campus and their programs. And so they're in various levels of approval right now, but it looks very promising that they will reserve 2 seats in each program for our graduates. And we need to work out within the campus how we select our graduates to put forward into that opportunity. But we know that those internships are really valuable to our students from an experiential perspective, but also towards whatever goal they're going to be. If you're going to practice as a strength and conditioning coach, you don't have experience as a strength and conditioning coach, you will not be employed. You can have the academic background, the certification, but if you don't have that experience, it's very, very difficult to be employed. So we're hoping that as they leave, they're armed with both the academic background and the experience piece of this, that it gives them the tools they need. Let's see here. Is that where we are? Okay, so
Yes,
where
yes.
we're going,
Where we're
going,
going.
we want to grow our major. That's what we talk about, at least we dream about. We have these whiteboards, specifically his office, with a grid of 20 different things that we should be looking at doing. And that kind of goes formally and informally in respect to marketing. We're going to continue to participate in the campus events for recruitment. We participate in open houses. We participate in on-campus events such as the major fair, talking to undeclared students. But we also have some more informal things that we'd like to do. We are trying to really do a little bit more of a social media type of marketing of ourselves. Mindy graciously set up an Instagram takeover for us when we went to Lake Placid, and Sloan was one of the students that took over Potsdam's Instagram for the day and posted pictures of their experience at Lake Placid. We have been invited to Akwesasne next month to do a little clinic to the first student athlete convention on Akwesasne for high school students. So we're going to do some testing with them to talk a little bit about that, and of course we're going to wear our Potsdam gear, so we can talk a little bit about what we do as well. And we're trying to develop a culture of community involvement. We're trying to get our majors off campus and doing things. When we were in Lake Placid, we talked about volunteer opportunities in Lake Placid. We've been bantering around, well, how do we partner with CPH? One of our nutritionists at CPH was guest lecturing for me this semester, and I said, how can we help you? She has identified some seniors that she does just some rudimentary exercise testing and just basically gauge their muscle mass. We said, well, we can help you do that. We can help you develop that battery, and maybe one of our students can work with some of these seniors. So we're trying to make those roads and make those connections. We ultimately, we think about our program, we're like, what's special to us, the Potsdam, right? We're this new program, and I had this moment, we've discussed this before. I went to meet a prospective student and his dad one day at corporate admissions. They called me out and said, can you come talk? Sure. I go in, and as I walk in, the admissions counselor said, oh, they just came from Portland. They just toured Portland for exercise science. And Portland is like the SUNY Mecca of exercise science, right? So, they've got these beautiful facilities, they're very established. And I'm like, what am I gonna say to this family? You know, what am I gonna say to this family? So I sit down with the dad and we chat and, you know, the son's into snowboarding, so we talk a little bit about that. And the dad had been in a motorcycle accident. So we're talking and he goes, okay, he goes, you know, we just were at Portland. I said, okay, I heard. Can you match those facilities? You know, we're building. We're in this phase where we're building our program, but here's what's really good about us. And I talked about our one-on-one contact with instructors and all of these things, but in doing so, we need to identify who we are as a program and how we fit into Potsdam and make people want to come here because we are Potsdam, not just because we're not Portland.
Yes.
Does that make sense? And so one of the things we've identified as a possibility is working with tactical athletes. And a tactical athlete is somebody such as a military individual, a police officer, firefighter, ROTC, tactical athletes. When you think about that, it's a new upcoming thing in our
Yes.
field. There's a new certification for this. Nobody does it. You know, why can't we be the place in New York State where our tactical athletes come to train? You know, why can't our students be the people involved in this? We had the opportunity to see the New York State, oh goodness, John could tell me what it was. It was a bunch of officers came from across New York State here this winter to get some training. They were going to be physically training their officers, and so they were being trained to do so. And looking at their material, it was developed in 2010, and it needed updating. You know, and in the moment we're like, well, why can't we do that? Why can't we be that? So, you know, we're trying to flush out our identity and what makes us special, but we're purposely doing that. And we started making your own connections in that way. What else? You want to talk about? We decided we could talk all day about this stuff.
Yeah,
So
exactly, we're
pare
trying to
ourselves down a
limit
little
the,
bit.
yes,
You know, the NSCA, the Educational Recognition Program is something we envision.
yes. So one of the things that I'm particularly proud of, again, being state director for New York for NSCA, is the different opportunities that I will be able to bring to this campus. So for example, speaking with NSCA National, we will be doing the first state clinic that New York has had in the past 4 years. So they wanted a place that was a little bit more centralized for this year because we're kind of doing it last minute. But definitely one of the things that I want to do is bring this to SUNY Potsdam, so that will be happening within the next 2 to 3 years. We will be having an NSCA state clinic here. Also with my involvement with USA Weightlifting, I would like to bring a state clinic for Olympic weightlifting here to SUNY Potsdam. There's also a program called the Educational Recognition Program through NSCA, which basically puts us on their website as one of the places to go if you're looking for exercise science. And that is something that I've met with some colleagues from New Hampshire and Maine, and I've talked with the regional coordinator. And this is something that we will be putting together, this package we will be putting together to, one, become that place when potential students look at the NSCA website, they see anywhere, you know, in New York, we become one of those people. But also it gives our students the ability for discounted membership, discounted exams and things of that nature. So being able to allow the students perhaps access to resources that they wouldn't have otherwise. And then what we were talking about with the tactical strength and conditioning, we have some ROTC students that are already interested in this, and we're moving forward, and we're thinking about involving the community very heavily. So when we think about municipalities, so we have UP, Potsdam Police, we have fire and rescue and things like that. So really getting the community invested in what we're doing, and like Tanya was saying, teaching the teachers. So to be able to organize certain people so they can go out into their own units and be those leaders when it comes to anything that has to do with exercise science.
I also want our students to be active on campus.
Yes.
Nate's here purposely because he's doing a whole different things. And Nate is actually developing a strength and conditioning club right now. Question? Okay. And the idea here is to get our students involved in changing their own culture on campus, right? And not just our athletic students, but we talked about our performing arts students, right? Our performing arts, they're athletes too, and we need to not lose sight of that. Our Crane students. Again, there's a lot of chronic injury in musicians, something to keep in mind in respect to how can we help them and impact them. We had a group of graduate students do a rudimentary study for us last semester, and they studied Crane students' physical activity habits. And a couple of the students reported they were in that building for 14 hours a day. 14 hours a day. You know, not doing a lot of physical activity, probably in this position. You can see where that would be cumulative over time. And so why can't our students be active with their peers on campus to enhance, to be able to practice their skills, be able to enhance what they're doing, but also just bring the level of awareness and engagement up collectively, so that we can do that. You know, from a student perspective, who else has performing arts and exercise science? Right? I had conversations open house with dance majors. Dancers don't dance forever. You know, they need something else in respect to a career. You know who works with dancers? Athletic trainers. So you can see where these two things kind of would meld. That's the end of our formal discussion. I don't know if you have questions for us or for it's more interesting to talk about.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions for us?
It's a little hesitant to ask though. You didn't finish the story. You talked to the parent and the student who were just visiting. Did we get them or not?
I will tell you, and actually, I really these two guys are really. The dad is really something special. He and the son too, as a matter of fact. But it was one of those moments where you could be frank with someone and they appreciated it. You know, you get that moment where you're like, okay, here's how this is, okay? And that was that kind of discussion. I said, we're building. In fact, at the time, our lab was in 10,000 pieces. I'm like, I can't even take you over there. I can't take you over there. And I said, but here's what's really good about us. And I told that. And so I said thank you, and they appreciated that. And I was working open house the first one this semester. And here comes the dad and his son. And Cortland is no longer their choice. So, us. And I guess there's a small school in Vermont. He's considering, again, he's a snowboarder, so I think that they had something really into it. But Cortland is no longer on their radar. And, the boy's name is Jesse, and I kind of wish I could remember the dad's name. He'd been in a serious motorcycle accident. And, but they walked up and they said, remember us? I said, sure do. How are we doing? How are you feeling, Dad? So I need to talk to admissions to see if he's deposited, but he had been accepted here. He had applied and been accepted. And I think they had just been to Vermont, and they were in Potsdam for the day, and I hope to see Jesse in the fall. He's a wonderful young man. Any other questions for us or these guys?
I'd love to hear the students talk just a little bit about their experience in being part of a new and emerging and growing program, because obviously it wasn't fully formed when you came.
Definitely for me, I came in as a freshman and decided that I was sure what I wanted to do. So I started with bio, which wasn't exactly, I didn't know I wanted to go with that. Switched to community health, thinking maybe that's closer. And neither really satisfied what I was potentially wanting to continue my education until I was starting to talk to Kanye about the program and its development. And being a spring junior and switching my major was a little hectic, but working with Tanya and Chris, I was definitely able to finish on time because I'll be graduating this semester. But it's really nice knowing that I'm going to be part of this group that is this new program being developed, and I can come back years from now and I hope to see all these amazing things like the lab we got in this semester, and just walking in and seeing all of this new equipment. I'm like, this is just going to keep developing as time goes on. I'm really excited to see that.
So I was part of the class of 2015 coming in to this new program, and I'm a hockey player, so when I came in, I was like, okay, I want to handle all the exercise science. I was a GAF student, so I played junior hockey for 2 years. So I worked with different strength and conditioning coaches through those 2 years, once in Ottawa, one in Buffalo, and I knew that that's what I wanted to go down. I went with the pre-professional track because I've been debating on going to strength and conditioning and physical therapy, and this program has really allowed for that growth and for my decision. And what's nice too is that I'll be able to make that decision later down the road if I want to continue with strength and conditioning do that for 10 years and still have the requirements for physical therapy, I can then get my DPT, move on from there. So it's awesome to be part of this growth, and I hope it grows even.
And you were, did you come in, I can't remember, did you come in undeclared, were you here previously?
I put exercise science on.
Yeah, you were one of our members too. Ms. Ross? They both have class and things that they need to go to, so we're gonna let them free.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
That was an excellent report. Even if Chris did go to D. Faculty Senate report.
I'm behind you.
Oh, there.
The other hat I wear is Director of Learning Communities, so I also want to plug to Tanya. I'm pretty sure Cortland doesn't have this. We're going to have a first-year interest group learning community for the exercise science students and students who might be interested in that first time this fall. Sandra was actually in my first-year interest group in, 3 years ago? Yes. All right, the report that I sent was a little bit untraditional in the sense that I don't normally give you pending items, but we had our final Senate meeting of the semester yesterday. So these policy items related to dismissal and future enrollment and undergraduate class rank, and 3 items related to curriculum all passed. One was to do with the approval process for our college and high school concurrent enrollment courses that are out in the local high schools. Program policy on updating our course substitution policy for graduate degrees, and we did pass the straw vote to move forward with the broad outline of general education. So the next steps there will be to dig down into the specifics in the courses and the learning objectives and the development of those competencies might look like. I have 3 additional items. I have to update all of this in the fall. That also got passed at that meeting. We passed a new undergraduate minor in education studies that's designed not for certification, but for someone who might have an interest in going into, say, school psychology or nonprofits, like working at a youth camp or things like that. A revised certificate in, this is a certificate of advanced study in inclusive and special education. This is for students, for students who already have their certification in their master's degree and want a second certification. They might have a childhood education certification. This is a really high needs thing in, throughout the state, but in the area. So this will make this easier for students to add that on. And we've also, we're also adding a new certificate in advanced study in higher education teaching. It's a long list of action items. A number of them, though, they're policies you've heard, we've passed pieces of earlier, so. We've been working on dismissal policies for more than a year.
Question, Lisa. The developing the broad outline on the Gen Ed program, is that something that occurs on a cycle basis? Is that just somebody says, it looks like it's behind me, but do something about it? What?
Gen Ed programs normally aren't reviewed necessarily on a regular basis. Occasionally, we do revisions if we have to comply with SUNY-wide changes. So this was a decision that came out of academic affairs in the provost's office. We have a task force, an ad hoc committee that was set up a year ago to do research. Our existing program is 20 years old. Some pieces of it are 27 years old. So a lot of changes have happened in that time and kind of best practices. The main difference, if you want to think about it this way, and this is the direction, the SUNY requirements are a little bit both of these things still, but the new programs are more competency-based rather than being a requirement that says take a class in biology, take a class in philosophy, right? So instead of saying take a class in English, it says, the objectives are framed more as, develop skills in writing, speaking, critical thinking, scientific thinking. So it's not, we don't review on a regular cycle.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the broad justification for kind of doing it now. And a number of other comprehensives are also in this process right now.
But Lisa, the program, the components of the program are assessed on a regular basis.
Yes,
So,
For compliance,
of the existing program.
for outcomes.
That's part of our middle states
Right.
accreditation, so yes, for compliance.
And through SUNY, yes. Yeah, we need to meet, in addition to whatever campus-based requirements we have, we need to meet the middle states recommendations for general education and the SUNY ones. So that's the other thing we kind of juggle. The new chancellor is, the new vice chancellor for academic affairs has always really, since he came in a year or so ago, has said, develop distinctive programs for your campuses. But we have to do that within those existing parameters. So that's part of what we're trying to do, is come up with something that would be exciting to teach, exciting to learn, and distinctive to Potsdam, and still hit all of those other.
good luck with that.
That's why you approve a broad outline first, and then go from there. Yeah, it will take a while, but hopefully we'll get a good result.
Thank you. Before we move on to the next report, I think everybody in your package has this. Has everybody given you what you need
I think so, yes.
for the
That's how you
voting?
get to park in the VIP section for commencement.
I don't mind the walk.
Well, thank you.
Okay, but I just wanted to make sure, Carol, you got all you needed for.
Thank you, I do, I'm good. I'm sorry, there is an itinerary in there too that kind of runs through the day's timeline, if you wanna pull that out, I can do it in the pocket.
SGA, Sandra, are you gonna do the report?
Sure.
You have to learn to delegate, have you?
That will come.
Well, I guess from my perspective, in terms of like what's kind of been going on for this semester and last semester, I plan to rebrand SGA. It is in my discipline, I'm a speech communication major. My focus is public relations, but in terms of that, I want to better help the students, especially target the freshmen. We're recreating the shadow boxes that are going to be located in the first year dorms, as well as the transfer dorms as well, just so they can get a sense of who we are, what we do, and what our positions are supposed to take on. It's in my in my interest where I want to try to help out the students more. I know there's been a lot of miscommunication, a lot of stuff that I want to build a bridge for. So, in terms of that, I wanna be able to connect the students, because I am definitely the first Afro-Latina to be president, and it gives a lot of students a sense of opening to come to me, talk to me about any issues, and I'm more open, I'm more willing. I actually had my first president council meeting this Monday, and they're more than willing to work with me and try to help expand it, and need a lot of help in terms of how to reach hundreds of more students. But there's nothing in my power that I wouldn't be able to help them with, and I wanna, regardless of his ambitious or not, to help them grow, help them succeed, and I won't, like, I guess, not to be like this superhero type of chick, but I won't sleep, I won't rest until like I get my stuff done to help them succeed, because it's my power for them to succeed. That's what I want. I'm not asking enough, but yeah.
Super. Any questions or comments to Sandra? Okay, academic affairs, Betty.
Thanks.
Gotta get used to the swivel.
That's right. Robin just left, but she was still sitting here. I'm sure to congratulate the faculty members with a presentation. This will be her last college council meeting. She's done an extraordinary job, 1.5 years as our interim dean in the School of Ed and Professional Studies. So thank you. And Dr. Walt Conley from biology will be stepping in as dean while the search will continue next year for a permanent dean. Good leadership, faculty and students are excited to see Walt coming on board. He's certainly well known on campus as an academic leader, so a really good choice for us. One of the things I was thinking of when Exercise Science was presenting, really proud of that particular program and the alignment between a really strong science and liberal arts foundation with real world lived experiences. I think our graduates are going to be doing amazing things. And it will be our first group of students graduating from that program next week. So I can't wait to see them go across the stage on their way to become medical doctors and physical trainers and great citizens for our region. One of the things that Dr. Torres didn't mention is that he did travel to Cuba earlier this year with a group of students and faculty. It was a dual study course with community health and sustainability. So I know that Dr. Torres is interested in doing some things specifically with exercise science in Cuba with his students. So that's an exciting next step for us.
And I just learned that he's been in contact with a Cuban student who wants him as an advisor. So that's already, that connection is already begun.
Right. So a great foundational bridge for us there. I know you have my report, so if you have any questions about any of the things on here, we'll have some great new initiatives within the School of Education and Professional Studies with OCES. We are very excited to have OCES students on our campus this semester. That will be a pipeline into our educator preparation programs. It's a really exciting and unique partnership. So some great things going on there, as well as the new certificates of advanced study that Lisa talked about, the Senate approved yesterday. So those are a year away, those certificates of advanced study, but excited to get them on their way to the state to get the final approval for those. So exciting things there. With the president's leadership, we have been able to come on board as SUNY's first partnering institutions with the 1+2+1 program with Chinese institutions that will really open the doors for us to make it a lot easier to work in China, to bring students here to the US. It's very difficult on your own as an institution to develop those pipelines. The Ministry of Education in China is large and obviously bureaucratic, and often is difficult to secure MOUs with institutions. But through this particular
program, it will create a great bridge for us. So I'll be very anxious to hear the results of the president's trip there in June. We already have a potential partner with Beijing, very interested in partnering with us with the arts, particularly arts management and more music business. So I think that might be one of our first forays with that particular partnership. So if there are any academic questions, I'd be more than happy to entertain those.
Could you explain a little bit about the 1-2-1
program? It's an initiative where students in China would earn 2 degrees, one from their Chinese institution and one from the host US institution. It's 1-2-1. The students would be the first year in China, 2 years in the US, and return to China. Dr. Esterberg has been involved more than I have with past institutions with this particular initiative, but that's kind of the framework for that.
I like the concept.
It was very, very successful at a previous institution, and it's part of the, it's a consortium of US universities through ASCU, which is the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, and they pair with a consortium of similar universities in China, so comprehensive, formal, normal teachers' colleges. It's a good way to create matches that are appropriate for an institution like ours.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly.
Any other questions for Betty? Thank you. Mary Dolan.
Mary, you will notice that Mary is not here, and I think she would feel comfortable with my sharing the reason why. One of the things on her bucket list was to go skydiving, which she did, and unfortunately broke one ankle and injured the other. So she is out. She is out. Actually, she still would recommend she do it again and would recommend that anybody do it. So I will give the business affairs report for her. We look forward to her speedy recovery, and she'll be back with us, I think, quite soon. Obviously this is budget season now that we've got the parameters from the state. We're working very, very hard with our new, she's not that brand new, our new Director of Business Affairs, Barbara Montour. So we are working through that budget process. It's going to be a long, hot summer in terms of the Excelsior, so I don't think we'll know exactly what our revenue will look like up until the last orientation and the first day of school, given that it's such a late season for students to learn. But Mary is taking care of that area with I will say, just extraordinary skill. The broken leg notwithstanding, she has taken over that entire division. We are searching for an interim chief financial officer, and I think we'll be very successful in having someone on board shortly. We've got very, very good leads, and we're working both with SUNY and with an institution called, an organization called the Registry. That clearly is the first priority for that area. And then physical plant.
Will CFO be a search?
Yes, we'll have an interim, but my aim is to give us a good year, possibly 2 years of developing some well-entrenched procedures and policies and ways, sort of habits of, habits that the college doesn't have in terms of different kind of budgeting process than we've had previously. So I want a very experienced interim to guide us through, because with our location and with our salary structures, we're likely to hire a very early career permanent CFO. So that's the strategy. But yes,
okay.
The interim is not a traditional search, but then we'll launch at the right moment. We'll launch a search for permanent CFO. I think probably the most exciting thing in physical plant, we're doing some major renovations of classroom buildings, which will provide more modern, up-to-date spaces for teaching and learning in Kellis Hall and Timmerman. And I want you to keep your eyes open for a groundbreaking for the Child Care Center, probably sometime in June. And with that, I will do my best to answer any questions. If not, I will get answers for you from Mary.
Without any questions or comments? Vicky isn't here either.
And Emily, you have
Oh.
Emily.
Emily is taking Vicky's place.
Does everybody know Emily Hutchison?
I don't know if, I think I know, I think you
Let's
know
read
everybody.
this.
Younger, so you don't have to
Okay.
sit with your backs
to me, but I'm Emily Hutchison, I'm the Assistant Vice President, and so Vicki couldn't be here today, she asked me to just give a brief highlight and answer any questions you might have. We are, you probably saw in the report that having ended our successful campaign last year, we have been going through a year of a debrief and lessons learned study, which has been guided and overseen by our campaign consultant. And she has just made her first report about that. And the long and short of it was that we did a lot of things wonderfully, and we had a lot of wonderful and generous alumni and friends that helped us reach that extraordinary goal. But she found that we have a great deal of potential still left, which is a wonderful place to end a campaign, not having sapped every single potential donor. And so we are looking forward to our next comprehensive campaign, which will probably be, the recommendation was several years from now, just to allow us some time to recoup. We need to build some infrastructure so we can take full advantage of some of the potential that we have amongst our alumni and friends, and some staffing infrastructure, some other services and support services. But in the meantime, we will be working with administration and the college to really focus our fundraising efforts on the greatest needs that we have here right now, which in a very general sense are scholarship support. We know that as we have needier and needier students coming to campus, that even with the Excelsior Scholarship, they will always have needs beyond that can be met. And so really focusing our efforts on building money for scholarship from our donors, as well as unrestricted gifts, which just mean that they have no restriction. They come to campus for the use as needed to maybe sometimes help support scholarships, but other times opportunities like the Cuba trip and other opportunities that arise that would allow our faculty and staff and students to take advantage of some really great opportunities. And I thank Roger for, he chairs the annual fund program in our annual giving office. He's the national chair, so we appreciate that, and we appreciate everything that Dr. Esterberg and the entire President's Council has done to support our efforts and help us be successful on behalf of the students and programs that benefit. Because of that, you'll see in the report, we're proud that we continue to be amongst the top performers, if you will, when we compare ourselves to our other comprehensive colleges in the SUNY system in terms of the percentage of alumni that give back to the college. So we're very proud of that, proud of the alumni and the way in which they continue to support our institution. And anything else? Oh, I will say that the foundation, in the report it said that there was a search for the foundation business manager, which is a very important position. And a couple days ago, it was offered and accepted by someone. So we will have someone joining us at the beginning of June who can fill that position. So we're very much looking forward to that. And we are searching for our director of annual giving. That's an open search that we have. Does anyone have any questions about that? Our fundraising, alumni type work?
How do you do it? I mean, it's amazing the amount of money you guys raise every year. It's just awesome.
Oh, thank you. Well, I know I'm biased, and I'm sorry to anyone else who works anywhere else on campus, but I think the advancement team is the absolute best team on campus. But having said that, well, what I will say is we've been doing it longer than a lot of our peer institutions. As you know, people didn't traditionally do fundraising in the state sector. And so we were one of the first campuses, as we're often the leaders, to really start fundraising efforts. So we've been doing it for a while. And as such, we're often seen as leaders in some of the ways in which we do it, and in a very strategic and mindful way. And so that helps with our success. But the number one reason we have success in our fundraising is because of the experience that students have on campus. And so you've heard from the students today, and you cannot replace that. And when our peer institutions say, how do you raise so much money? Well, when we go and talk to our alumni who are finally in a position to really give some generous gifts, they talk about having been part of the Potsdam family and how meaningful that was to them, and the attention they got from their faculty and their staff, and the way they really felt like an individual here on campus, an important part of the family, not just a number in a seat. And so that makes our job so much easier, because you can't recreate that with an alum 30 years later. And so all those other institutions who have these huge alumni bases, that I look at them and I look at the number of staff and I think, oh, if we had all of those people to go to and all of those staff, what we could be doing. But if you're going to meet with alum that don't have that feeling about their alma mater, then you're not going to be successful. So we really, and that's not just lip service, we attribute it to the faculty that we have on campus, the environment that we're able to create for students, the welcoming, inclusive environment, and you just can't, it doesn't matter how good a fundraiser you are, you need to have that in order to have success. Any other questions?
Just one comment, Emily.
Yes.
As chair, national chair of the annual fund for Potsdam, I shall be in touch with each and every one. Repeatedly.
And perhaps I'll follow up with a visit.
Right.
We'll tag team.
Absolutely.
But I will say I'm so proud of our advancement efforts. It is an incredible team and they do an extraordinary job, and I couldn't be prouder.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks.
Rick, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Is it okay if I do the enrollment first, then student affairs?
Whatever.
Okay, great. Wanted to welcome Sandra. Congratulations on your new position as SGA president and your service to the College Council. So thank you. You have in the report an update on the enrollment and then another report on the student affairs. We are in the enrollment area still, we're running about 3% behind. We've been playing catch up on our deposits, and we're working very hard. The admissions financial aid team works together as a synergy to try to do everything we can to try to help move the student enrollment forward for this fall. I will point out some things that we're seeing. We are seeing an increase on the transfer side, seeing more and more transfer students coming to the college, and that number is up for the fall. We're also seeing increases in the exercise science, graphic design, and international studies. These are new programs. They're, if you will, kind of in a startup phase because they're in their first year or so. And so we have applications with SUNY and State Ed for arts management and GIS also. And I believe Provost Bergeron had mentioned those before, but I wanted to mention the importance of that as we support the enrollment patterns and growth for sustainability. Our freshman GPA, as you can see from the report, remains constant at 88. And our transfer GPA at 3.1, and we see very little variance there. But the big thing that I wanted to really emphasize is what we're going through as an institution relative to how students pay for college. That is the biggest challenge that we as an institution face. We have a really great recruiting staff, and I think, as Emily pointed out, the support we get from the foundation, from the campus community that she outlined, mirrors the support we get in the enrollment area as well. It's really one big family working as a team for whether it's enrollment or fundraising. That really includes our faculty and the entire administration. The students are great. But on the financing part, the Excelsior program and the ensuing details are yet to be transmitted to us in a way that we can answer all the questions. That is not to be viewed as a complaint, it's just what we're going through in the change process. And we will have our guidance, as President Esterberg pointed out. I think it'll be on or around, should be by June 7th at the very latest, because the Higher Ed Services Corporation, who is the governing unit for the state, for the governor's office, will be handling the administration of the program. And we estimate in a very using two variables, income level and then using the income level variable and then the number of full-time credits. And I can explain some of the differences you might hear from some other institutions. But using those two variables, we estimate it's 30% of our undergrad population on the front end, total right now being eligible for that particular program. And you might say, well, why do other institutions have a lower percent? That's because of the mix of part-time students. If you have a high number of part-time students, the program is not geared for part-time students, it's really geared for full-time students. And there are guidelines that we're getting weekly. We're in conference calls. We are getting, we have website information available and information we're putting out to students on this, but it's difficult for us to be able to answer all the questions about eligibility until we get the full, the full picture. What we are doing, however, is packaging and working with students as we always do to try to keep the process going. And we need to get ready for orientation. In the summer orientation, we run 6 programs, and then we run a big program at the end of the summer. We have programs in EOP and so forth. We had, it was a couple of weeks ago, we had 104 students here for Multicultural Weekend, and that was a great weekend for us. I think we only had one no-show, and then we had somebody that on the wait list that wanted to come, so we were able to get 100% here to make the trip from the New York City area, and they spent a better part of a weekend with us, prospective admitted students, so we were very, very happy about that. And I know that Sandra was there to welcome them at the opening welcoming, and I think that's great. We have students involved. On the student affairs side, you can see there's a lot happening there. We have our RAs hired for next year. We're housing students. We're still doing the housing for fall. And we're actually, getting the RAs hired and trained. They go through a pretty intensive training process there. Things are going very well in that area. Our code of student conduct is under review at SUNY Legal, and I know that's something I talked about at the last meeting. We had hoped to get it on the agenda for this meeting, but SUNY System Admin, we have a legal counsel there that works with us on that, so we haven't completed the legal review yet. And I believe in the report that is stated for the last week in May of 17, so we'll have that to you for the following meeting, which should be late summer, early fall. Is that right, Carol? Okay. So that's pretty much my report. We have a lot going on, and it's been a really good semester, great year. Just so much excitement on campus. We're going to work hard to get the enrollment where it needs to be for fall. So it's going to be a long and busy summer for the folks in the enrollment area with orientation and all the things we're doing, but that's not unusual either. So can answer any questions.
Rick,
Yes, sir.
these numbers reflect going into the fall, the 2017 numbers?
Yes, that's correct. Those are entering numbers. Yep.
Because, the only thing that strikes me is that you're getting more inquiries, we're getting more applications, but our acceptances are down. What do you think causes that?
Well, what happens with the acceptance rate going down is it really depends on the nature of the pool. Sometimes we get applications which aren't complete. The application won't be complete. We don't get all the information, and so it doesn't mean that the person was rejected. It just didn't go up for full review.
So you count it anyways?
Right. Yeah, we count it as an application that's logged in. And then the deposit part is where the competition comes into play. And sometimes when students apply, they actually withdraw, they notify the other campus. So it's an application we received. We don't subtract it and say it wasn't here. So it just gets netted out as something that didn't happen if the prospect decides to move on. But the biggest challenge really is in the conversion from acceptance to deposit. And then once that happens, you know, we have a small deposit that would bind the student with us, you know, $100. And that's a good thing, you know, that we know that, but then we have to work hard to make sure we can get them here in the fall, and that, you know, all the things that we need to do with the housing and financial aid are to their satisfaction and are going to be viable in terms of the family income and the resources.
Rick, maybe I should talk a little bit about what we're working on with North Country, because I think this is a really exciting opportunity for us. When you look at the applications versus acceptances, there's a pretty significant pool of students that we're not able to accept because their grade point averages don't meet our minimums, or they just don't have quite the academic quality. But they're close. And so historically, we sent them a letter saying, if you go to a community college, you know, come back and think about us. We're working with North Country Community College so that instead of saying, you know, go away someplace and come back, they would actually come here to Potsdam, live in the residence halls, participate in student activities, but have their academics being provided by North Country and the academic support provided by North Country until they either receive their associates or until they receive grades that were high enough to enable them to transfer in. And I think when I look at one of the opportunities we have, we know that if we send a student a letter that, you know, maybe you're down in the Bronx, and we say go to a community college and then come back, by the time they're ready, they've probably forgotten about us, or they've moved on, they're doing something different. So we're trying to find some ways that we can provide the student life experience here on the campus, but then make sure that they have the academic experience that's appropriate to their background and experience. So that's something that we're looking to implement. We're working on it now, and the opportunity would be to have those students come a year from now.
How would you do that, just floating?
No, faculty come here, the North Country, because they're already in the loan. In fact, they have a number of faculty who are,
Or bring them over.
you know, close. So literally, we're looking to try and figure out, just how do we bring them a little bit closer. But I'm really excited about that because it's good for North Country, it's good for the region, it's good for us, and it's good for the student who's looking for that residential experience but isn't quite ready for a full Potsdam academic load.
There are, just to go along with what Kristen's saying, there are 30 community colleges in SUNY, and working on these kinds of initiatives is really, really important. We find that when students have an avenue, whether it's the avenue that the president just described or a conventional 2+2 from the community college to here, as long as they're getting the right support and we can support them, whether it's helping to guide them in the first couple of years and then they come in the upper division here, we find that is a very good pathway, and that's really what we're trying to focus on, and working closely with North Country would be one example.
Thank you. Are the deposits non-refundable?
They're refundable up until May 1. It really is not an issue after May 1. They can write in with an extenuating circumstance if that's a problem. If they don't have the money for the deposit, which many students don't, we can certainly work with them on a waiver. So we're very flexible with that. We don't want to lose a student over, you know, $100 deposit, but we want to make sure they have enough time to make a decision. And if money is a constraint for them, you know, we'll work with them on a refund.
The only reason I'm asking is we provide a small scholarship program for kids of our members. Right now, it's a total reimbursement. I'm just wondering if we can change that to include a deposit of some sort, at least blind the student.
Yeah, the deposit does count. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. The deposit does credit their bill for the first semester. So it's not like we get the deposit and then it doesn't go towards the latter part of the charges. It's really a credit for the first semester.
Well, it could be something that if they
Yeah.
choose Potsdam, we can.
You could help with,
we can
sure.
Apply a
Great.
deposit
That'd
for
be
them.
lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be wonderful.
And we appreciate that. It's, we work with all kinds of different circumstances with our foundation staff and a program like that would be very helpful, I think, for our students.
My unprofessional experience, and kids I'm talking to, it seems like they apply to more colleges now than people used to, that
They do.
They do.
They do.
One reason applications will be up, but enrollment not matching.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Correct.
they're filling out more
Yeah.
applicants.
That's a good point, Ken. The applications that you see in the statistics don't mean that they're just ours. We had a batch of 400 that just came in that were running behind. They go to SUNY on SUNY.edu and they go to a central repository, but many of those applications go out to the entire, in some cases, the entire university. In other cases, they might be to whatever the student wants. Usually the average is up to 4. And, they'll pick up to 4 and then we might be in one of the 4. But they're not exclusively our applications. So we're in competition along the way, right to the very end of the process.
Great, is this Excelsior Scholarship Program? Is that seen as kind of I see it as a wild card, the whole admissions process here. I mean, what impact, if any, if perhaps going to have a greater impact than you have predict?
Well, it is difficult to get our arms around that situation. For certain types of students, is relative to income, it'll be a very useful way to go to college. In that regard, for students that are already in the full TAP and full Pell, it won't provide any more incentive because they can't exceed the full cost of tuition. So for the highest need student, which means the lowest income students, it wouldn't be perceived as being really any different. It's really, the other thing I would point out, and I don't want to be redundant from last weekend's foundation report that I gave, but it is the last dollar approach. So what that means is, TAP and Pell and any other awards that are earmarked for tuition side come first, and then the Excelsior picks up the gap up to 5,500. So, there's that part of it, and then the other part, which I would say to answer your question, Roger, it's a great question, is what would the impact be on the residential, because if you look at our charges, a significant portion of our bill is on room and board, so we still have gaps that Excelsior won't cover, and that means, I'm looking at Emily and she's shaking her head. Yes, that means we still need to have our scholarship program to help fulfill that side of the experience.
Yes, because for the most part, our scholarships are not in the MOU restricted to tuition. Most of them are for any student.
Right.
The student's expense in terms of bills, so it can be used for.
Yeah, and lastly, though, the other part of my answer to your question is the provision of converting the Excelsior to loan. So I don't know if you folks know where we're at with that, but for every year that the student receives Excelsior, it's a scholarship, but for that year, so if they do 4 years of Excelsior and then they move out of New York State or don't work in New York State, if they move out of New York State, then that converts to a loan. And that is, from a practitioner's point of view, is my largest concern, because we don't have clear guidance on what the truth in lending is, because in effect, what it is on the front end is it's a proxy for a loan if the student doesn't fulfill the obligation, but they don't know where they're gonna be 4 years from now, so what is the interest rate and what are the terms? And we think it'll be zero, we've been told that, 0%, and we think it'll be a 10-year payback. But we need to get that guidance, put out there in a way that we can properly advise the students and their families so that they know, what the guidelines are. So I'm concerned about that. It's not a criticism, it's just something we need to be able to manage.
Well, the other thing that came out, Mr. Paul's comments last week, again, where if you don't complete 4 years, they can put you on.
And that is a concern. We have already, with the help of the Provost's office and the Success Center, already engaged our advising system. We have a Student Success Center which provides advising support, but we have faculty advisors and mentors all over campus that, for that reason, we need to be on top of how we manage credit hour. So it's a 30 credit hour completion in 12 months. So that means properly advising students who might be in jeopardy if they're doing a 12-hour first semester and a 12-hour second, we're gonna need a 6-hour summer session. And so making sure we have access to that and the advising process along the way. And, we want students to be successful. And we know that that's what the state wants as well, but how we operationalize it and how we plan for it is really the key. Okay, thank you, appreciate it, and again, Sandra, best of luck and congratulations. Yep.
Never considered Monday. Rick, are you totally diversity? Would you like to give us a report?
I think I have everything inside the report, and I'll be happy to answer any question. The only update is that next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we will have 2 facilitators from the National Coalition Building Institute to facilitate a 3-day train-the-trainer with 35 faculty, staff, and students. And that training will be rolled out to the entire campus in the summer.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Or anything else? Next time, thank you very much. Anything else?
I think that's appropriate. I'd just like to say how, I think it was falls under that report that St. Lawrence Leadership Institute has been rebirthed thanks to Sweeney Potsdam and the Chamber, and just very grateful that it's a great program, so I'm glad that you're working together.
That is thanks to Josh LaFave, who's the director of our graduate and continuing education under the leadership of Betty Bergeron. He's, we're grateful. He stepped up, saw the need in the county, and said we thought we could do it.
Thank you, Ken. Any other things to bring before the board today? Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Roger, Ken. Thank you.
Well, thank you for expert sharing.
We won't see each other again for what, a week?
A whole week.
That's good.
If those of you that don't want to walk, well, put this in your car.